In 2006 programming now from Tennessee, incumbent Governor, Democrat Phil Bredesen, and his Republican challenger, State Senator Jim Bryson, square off at Tennessee State University. Congressional Quarterly rates this as a Democrat-favored race. Check the status of this race and others at our website, campaignetwork.org. From Nashville, this is about 50 minutes.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome the two candidates appearing in tonight's forum, Governor Phil Bredesen, State Senator Jim Bryson.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, under the rules set by the League of Women Voters, each candidate will make a 3-minute opening statement. That will be followed by a series of questions, which the response time will be 2 minutes. The candidates may use up to 1 minute of each allotted time to respond to the previous comment from your opponent. The candidate may not introduce a new topic during his answer. League members on the front row will be holding up signs that will show you how much time you have left. The League has asked me to step in as necessary to stop you when the time is running out, so I'm not being a mean person, I'm just following the clock, so you'll understand that. The League has also asked me to ask you for clarification of your answer if that is necessary, but I must do that within the 2 minutes allotted. Candidates will alternate who goes first, decided by a coin toss earlier. Let me introduce now News Channel 5's LaCheryl Tucker, who will be assisting in questions from the audience. LaCheryl, glad to have you with us tonight. Give her a round of applause, folks. She's working hard tonight. And now for our first 3-minute opening statement from State Senator Jim Bryson.
Thank you, Chris. It's good to be here, and I want to start by thanking our sponsors for making this possible and having this debate tonight. I'm a small business owner. I've owned a business for the past 20 years. I know what it's like to make a payroll, and I've also been a state senator for the past 4 years. So I have a good understanding of what state government is all about as well. I'm running for governor because I believe that Tennessee needs good, new, strong leadership. I believe that Phil Bredesen has not earned the right to another 4 years in Tennessee. 4 years ago, we had a TennCare crisis that we were dealing with. TennCare still has not been structurally fixed. We still have a problem with TennCare, and because it hasn't been changed structurally, we will have the problem in 4 years from now that we had 4 years ago. Matter of fact, we are spending as much on our state's health policy, actually more on our state's health policy now than we were before 170,000 people were kicked off of TennCare. We've also had the last couple of years, Tennesseans have been embarrassed by the scandals that have occurred in Tennessee. And we need a strong leader that will deal with the scandals and make sure that people are held accountable and responsible for those issues. I think you're going to see that there's a clear choice in Tennessee in this election, a very clear choice on the issues that people care most about. There's a clear choice when we talk about illegal immigration. I have put forward a plan, a 10-point plan to deal with illegal immigration that will give us one of the toughest, if not the toughest, illegal immigration policy in the nation. Governor Bredesen, when we passed the bills in the state Senate last year, Governor Bredesen said it was a federal issue, and nothing was done about it. We also have a very clear distinction on taxes. I have proposed that when we have extra money coming into this state, that we begin to help the working people, and we begin to reduce the sales tax on food. Governor Bredesen opposes that plan and is actually considering an increase in the gas tax in his next term. I've also been adamantly opposed to a state income tax and will veto it if necessary. Governor Bredesen is supporting Bob Rochelle, the architect of the state income tax, for election in Tennessee. These are just some of the issues that we will be talking about tonight. Another one that we are clearly different on, that voters will have clear distinctions on, is on values. I'm pro-life. Governor Bredesen is pro-choice. I voted twice for the marriage amendment. Governor Bredesen didn't sign it when it came across his desk. There are clear distinctions on the values that matter the most to Tennesseans. I'm excited about where we're going in this debate. I want to thank you for being here, for watching, and I think you're going to see that there are clear differences between the two of us tonight, and I'm looking forward to discussing those issues with you this evening. Thank you very much.
Governor Bredesen.
Thank you. Well, I think you've just seen a little bit of a preview of what the evening is going to be like. Rather than responding at this time to some of those things, Jim, I'd like to use my time to talk a little bit about the future. I've been governor for 4 years, and during that time I've seen some great things happen in Tennessee. I've seen Tennesseans also deal with some very difficult situations. Katrina, when evacuees came into our state, the tornadoes that we've experienced over the years, school violence, school gun violence, National Guard troops going off, leaving their families and their jobs to go to Iraq and Afghanistan. One of the things I've been so struck with is how proud I am of Tennessee and Tennesseans, how inspired I am by the way in which we step up to problems, we roll our sleeves up, and we solve them. I want to do that same thing in these next 4 years with the subject of education and how we take care of getting our kids ready for the world they're going to face. We've built a great foundation. We built a solid foundation. The people aren't circling the Capitol anymore, throwing rocks and honking their horns. We've had 4 balanced budgets with surpluses. We've been able to make some preliminary investments in education, getting the pre-K program up and going, putting a lot of money into higher education as well. What I want to do now is to energize that, to reach out to that Tennessee spirit and ask for help in really doing what we need to do with education over these next 4 years. I want to get that same courage that I saw in the faces of those National Guard men and women going abroad. I want to bring that to bear on education, to make some of the tough choices that we need to make to fix our schools. I want to bring that same sense of compassion that I saw in Shelby County and everywhere in the state when these people came who'd lost everything and had to reach out to us for help. And to bring that to bear on making sure that every child in our state, every child, gets what they need out of our school system to be successful in life. I have learned a lot about this job, and one of the things I've learned is being governor is not about complaining, it's not about criticizing. It really is, in the end, about inspiring. I've also learned that it's not about party politics and D's and R's. It really is about reaching out to everybody in the state and taking the best of the ideas that are out there. I'm asking you for 4 more years so I can roll my sleeves up and show you what I can do, what I can give as the best of myself. And I'm going to in turn ask each of you to roll your sleeves up and give the best of you. The job of grown-ups is to make life better for the next generation, and we are going to spend the next 4 years doing exactly that.
Thank you, Governor. Now, I have the honor of asking the first question. Governor, you'll be answering the question first, then Senator Bryson. The image of FBI agents swarming through the legislative plaza, rounding up and arresting state lawmakers on federal indictments, not state indictments, but federal indictments, has not made a lot of Tennesseans very proud about certain aspects of their state government. Time and time again, most state legislators have shown they are not particularly interested in strong, and I mean really strong, ethics legislation and a strong state enforcement mechanism to enforce high standards of ethical behavior. Now the question, are you satisfied with the ethics legislation currently on the books? And if not, what leadership and pressure would you bring on legislators whose help you need to pass your program to give Tennessee the best state government no amount of money can buy? Governor?
When the tragedy for our state, and there's no other way to describe it, happened of those indictments and the FBI coming through, the thing that most bothered me was we're always going to have people who do illegal things, I suspect, in this world. The tragedy really was, in my mind, the decrease in confidence and really the falling confidence that people felt in the process of government as a result of doing that. What I did in response to it was to, first of all, call a special session of the legislature. That was something that was resisted. It was resisted on both sides of the aisle, to be honest with you. And we took the results of the commission we had put together and tried to find ways to make that work in law. Three major components to it. First of all, we made changes in campaign finance, eliminating cash contributions over $50, requiring a lot more information from where contributions come from. Second of all, and probably most important, there were major new restrictions put on lobbying and lobbyists and the kinds of entertainment that they can provide and the like. And third of all, and ultimately probably the most important, is we created an ethics commission that really has some teeth, that can look at these issues when they come along and make determinations about how it works. I was satisfied that it was a good first step. I think the legislature went further than, frankly, I expected them to do. I think it was a good first step. I think the trick now is let's see how it works, and let's keep reviewing it every couple of years so we don't wait 14 or 15 or 20 years and then have another thing happen in Tennessee like happened a year ago this past spring. People really deserve to have confidence in how these decisions are made. There's plenty of room for differences about what is the right answer to any given problem. But people need to know that those decisions are being made and those choices are being made by people who have the interest of the people of Tennessee at heart. I think we made a step forward in that direction last January.
Thank you, Governor. Senator.
Thank you. One of the things that we can't do is lose the confidence of the people of Tennessee. And what happened with Tennessee Waltz created a crisis of confidence in our state. So that the people don't believe in government anymore. So one of the things that we need to do is we need to make sure that we hold people accountable for when they break the trust of government. We have to make sure that we do that. Because when you're an elected official, when you're appointed to a high office in government, you have a much higher standard of conduct, and you should be held to that. So when I'm governor, we will work to propose more disclosure for legislators. We will work to break the wall down, or create a wall between lobbyists and legislators to make sure that they don't cross over. And we're going to end those types of crossovers. The disclosure is going to be critically important because the media can help with that. Unfortunately, with Tennessee Waltz, we had a tremendous problem where we had indicted legislators that were participating in a special session on ethics. I introduced a resolution to keep those senators from participating in a special session on ethics. They were indicted. It seemed to make sense to me that they shouldn't participate in that session. Unfortunately, the governor and some others called it political posturing, and that resolution failed. And those senators who were indicted voted on ethics legislation. It was a good bill, but it was just a start. And when I'm governor, we're going to move that bill forward, and we're going to strengthen those laws because we have to hold our elected officials to a higher standard, and we have to hold them accountable for what they do because they are elected officials and they have control of the public trust.
Cheryl, you have our first question from the audience.
Our first question comes from Jane Powers, and Mr. Bryson, you are first.
Gentlemen, many Tennesseans have difficulty finding jobs that provide wages sufficient to sustain families, particularly considering rising higher education and child care costs, medical and retirement needs. More than half of the women in Tennessee's workforce do not earn a living wage. Other populations, including minorities, the disabled, and older workers, are also struggling to make ends meet with low-paying jobs. Labor experts are saying that jobs in technology and healthcare fields will continue to grow over the next 10 years. If elected, what will you do to bring higher-paying jobs to our state and ensure that Tennessee's workforce is skilled to fill these positions so our citizens can support families on the wages that they earn?
That's a great question, Jane. Thank you for it. And there's so many facets of it. Let me see if I can boil it down a little bit on that. One of the jobs that any governor has is to create jobs in Tennessee, and not just not low-paying jobs, but to create good jobs for Tennesseans. And so one of the things that, unfortunately, over the past 4 years, our unemployment rate has stayed above the national average. We haven't created the kinds of jobs in Tennessee that we need to bring down that unemployment rate. So as governor, one of the things that I will do is I will go out there and work hard to not only to bring companies in, because those are great, but we will develop an economic development team that will grow companies in Tennessee so that we're not competing against other states to see who can give the most incentives to get them in and out. But let's grow our companies here, and we'll create those jobs, because that's exactly what we need to do. We haven't created enough jobs in Tennessee right now to lower our unemployment rate, and we have to do that. So we're going to work hard to make that happen when I'm governor, and I believe that we can do it. The other thing that I want to do when I'm governor to help those working families is I want to begin to give those working families a break on the sales tax on food. When we have money coming into this state the way we have, we need to begin to look at reducing the
You know, you're bringing this a new topic that has nothing to do with jobs. If you want to stick to jobs.
I thought it was working families and jobs. Okay.
Jobs. I'm sure you'll get a question about the sales tax.
All right. Well, thank you, Jane. It was a good question, and we will work hard on that when I'm governor. Thank you.
Governor?
We've had some good successes over the past 4 years, but there's a great deal more to be done. The numbers are about 103,000 new jobs, about $14 billion in investment. One of the big problems we have in this is that it's been patchy. There are areas around Nashville, for example, where we're sitting here, where the Nissan headquarters has just come, that really are creating a lot of excellent high-paying jobs. We also have areas in our state, in some of the more rural areas, where they may have lost a relatively low-skill manufacturing plant. We've got areas in our inner cities as well that are really struggling to have those jobs. And I think one of the challenges for any governor, and it's true across this country, is how you spread the wealth around, in the sense of making sure that all 95 counties are successful. I've got some things that I want to do. First of all, we need to continue increasing the amount of money we put into infrastructure to support companies. I've grown that to about $14 million, and I propose doubling it to 28 next year, particularly in some of these smaller counties that don't have the capital resources to build a road or put in a water line or some of those kinds of things. Those kinds of things can be very helpful. Second of all, we do need a more skilled workforce. The jobs that we're losing are largely unskilled jobs. The jobs that are coming in, the real opportunities are with jobs that have a lot higher skill level. I really want to use the community college system, and I've talked about giving free tuition to the C students, if you will, in community colleges, to try to create a lot more people who have got a respectable set of skills that really align with the kinds of jobs that are out there and are being created today, and that have the good kind of living wage that you have that you've talked about here. This is one of these jobs that's never done. We're going to continue working on it. I'm proud of the successes we've had. I think there's a great deal more to do in this area. I think it's something I have a knack for. And again, I ask you for the opportunity to show you what I can do, building on the foundations we've made in these first 4 years to really continue to grow the work base here in Tennessee.
Cheryl, another question from the audience.
Our next question is from Gwen Vincent, and Mr. Bredesen, you are first.
Identity theft is a huge and growing issue for Tennesseans. Many people have had their Social Security number or other personal information stolen and money taken from them in one way or another. To address this problem, over 24 states have passed legislation allowing consumers to put a freeze on their credit reports so they can control who has access to their credit information. Would you support this type of legislation?
I'll be honest with you, that is the first I've heard of that particular kind of legislation, and I appreciate your bringing it up. There's a lot of mechanisms for identity theft. Certainly the internet has been a huge factor in so much information being transmitted over the internet in ways that it can be accessed by other people. And that's something that I think a lot of attention is being paid to. I certainly am willing to look at legislation like that. I don't have all the arguments on both sides of that, what it does for commerce as opposed to what it does for identity protection, but I frankly think it's an interesting idea, and as I always find when I come talk to any group of people, you take one good idea away from it, it's something I'm very willing to look at, and if it makes sense, and it certainly sounds on the surface to be something I certainly would consider, yes.
Senator Bryson?
Thank you. I appreciate the question. I served on the Commerce Committee, and we dealt with identity theft quite a bit. Matter of fact, about 7 or 8 years ago, I actually had my identity stolen. So I'm very familiar with the problems of identity theft. It's a horrible thing to happen to you when you have your identity stolen and you find out, as was in my case, that someone had not only was trying to get credit in my name, had gotten an apartment in my name, and all of this in another state. And they were trying to get all kinds of credit cards. Those are terrible things, and we need to begin to look at these types of things. Matter of fact, about 2 or 3 years ago, I passed a bill that would have actually helped to deal with identity theft, and what it did was it increased the penalties for those in Tennessee who commit identity theft, because we need to make sure that people can't steal those identities of anyone, particularly our seniors, which often get preyed on with identity theft. It's important that we protect our information in Tennessee so that individuals cannot prey on other individuals' finances. It not only causes a problem now, but it causes a problem for the future. I'm very familiar with this issue because it's something that we dealt with in the Commerce Committee, and I actually led an identity theft task force to begin to deal with this problem in Tennessee. Putting a freeze on credit reports is part of a solution that we need to absolutely look at in Tennessee. A lot of other states are doing it. And it has to be a solution that all states do because of the interstate commerce that works. We can make that, we can begin to work with others. When I'm governor, we'll work with other states to fix the problems across state lines. Crime, and particularly crime against individuals and senior citizens, has to be stopped. And we have to make sure that people pay the price when they do so. Thank you for that question. It's a good question. It's a question that affects a lot of our citizens.
Sheriff, another question from the audience.
Our next question is from Jason McAlexander. And Mr. Bryson, you are first.
Tennessee ranks at the bottom of all states in the provision of home and community-based services for people with disabilities. We place people of all ages, including children and young adults with disabilities, into nursing homes. If elected, what will you do to ensure that Tennesseans with disabilities other than mental retardation finally have access to supports and services in their homes and communities, and that Tennessee takes advantage of national initiatives like Money Follows the Person?
Thank you for that question, because I think that is one of the real challenges that we have going forward in our state. We need to go toward Money Follows the Person. Those types of legislation where if someone can get home and community-based services, they can utilize them rather than having to go to a nursing home. Because we are all aging ourselves, or we're taking care of aging parents, or we're looking at we're seeing that that's going to be coming toward us at some point in the near future. And it's critically important. It's critically important that we have the kinds of infrastructure and the kind of help to those people that will improve their quality of life. Who doesn't want to stay home if you can? If you can get the health care at home, don't you want to stay home? Who doesn't want to do that? So we need to make sure that we build the kind of home and community-based services in Tennessee that will support people staying in their home as long as they're able, because that's the kind of quality of life that we want, and it's the kind of quality of life that we want our parents to have. One of the practical ways to do that is to begin to have the money follow the person instead of just be for beds or just be for this service or that service. Those kinds of walls in services cause problems going forward. We need to do that. We haven't done enough of that over the past 4 years, and we need to do it. It's a very good question, and it is a problem that we will have as our society gets older. We need to make sure that we do that we let them stay at home as long as possible. Thank you.
First of all, I believe very much that people, the frail, elderly, others have the right, and it's very important that they be able to stay in their home as long as possible. In my personal case, my grandmother, who I grew up with, was able to stay at home until she passed away. My mother is getting older and is able to stay at home. They were both able to do it because of an extended family that could help doing that. And of course, I'm very aware that the world is full of people where they either don't have that extended family, or the extended family lives in other communities and can't provide that kind of support. This is something that I have a commitment to do, and I'll be honest with you, it has been a slower course than I hoped it would be. The big thing that that we had to do was to bring the expenditures in TennCare under control. This is the mechanism through which much of this happens. When that was growing at the rate that it was, my first year 18%, that's a it's more than $1 billion in growth at that point. We had to get that under control before we can look at this. One of the things that I want to do is to, again, as I was saying earlier, to build on some of these foundations that we made. We have finally brought the expenditures in that program with great difficulty and gut-wrenching kinds of decisions. We have brought them under control, and what it does is it frees us up now to begin to pursue that aggressively and put Tennessee in a position of being a leader in the country, instead of, as you properly say, down in the bottom few in the country in terms of these home and community-based services. I also think it's important, I would like to get the existing industries that provide nursing home services to help provide some of these services, because the big danger in these is a lot of fly-by-night outfits that start up to try to provide these services just based on the availability of the money. But I think if we manage this properly and we now have the flexibility and the money available to do it, I think you'll see some real progress on this subject over the next few years.
Cheryl?
Our next question is from Tammy Ward and Mr. Bredesen. You're first.
Two statewide polls by Mason-Dixon Polling and Research showed a majority of Tennesseans believe more government business is conducted in secret than in the open. What would you do as governor to increase public trust in government at all levels?
Yeah. I think this public trust issue is an enormous issue, and as a previous question indicated, has been exacerbated by the Tennessee waltz and the things that followed on from that. I think there's a lot of aspects of conducting government in the open. One of the things that I did early on was to open up the budgeting process to the public through a series of public hearings as opposed to doing it in the back rooms. These take a lot of time. They are sometimes embarrassing for me. They are sometimes embarrassing for the commissioners who come up in front of me. But I really think it takes one of the most important things we do, which is decide how the money is going to be spent and who's going to benefit, and who's not from that, and puts it out in the public for that to happen. Another thing is we have a strong open records law in Tennessee. But I got to be honest, there's a lot of places where people try to figure out ways to not give those things up or to make it difficult to get access to those records. If you're a big press organization, you can afford to hire a lawyer and go to court, and some of them have, and sometimes they win and sometimes they don't. But one of the things that I want to do and committed to do is, with the new Ethics Commission, which just got into business here on the 1st of October, is to put an ombudsman in there, someone that can make calls about what kinds of records need to be released, what kinds of records are subject to the open records law, so that not only big organizations like newspapers can get access to these things, but ordinary citizens, if they're being stiff-armed in some way, can come in and get access to this. I'm trying very hard to operate in open government and to do things not in secret, and sometimes it's always a little embarrassing. You have to kind of show your dirty laundry out there, but I think it's an important part of restoring public trust in government. I think it's an important part of just the way government operates.
Thank you. Thank you for that question. It does go back to what we talked about a few minutes ago, which is restoring trust to government. When you talk about ethics and you talk about what's important to and how you restore people's trust, it does go back to open government. That's the key, because if you have open government, then the media will watch and make sure that everybody's feet are being held to the fire, and that will be a good start. One of the things the concerns that I have, quite frankly, about the last 4 years is that we've had some problems with shredding of documents related to sexual harassment in this administration. We've also had some issues with the TBI files that have not been released. The deputy governor was involved in a ticket fixing scandal, and unfortunately fortunately there was an investigation. The problem is that the file was never turned over, and it wasn't made public, it wasn't made open, and so nobody knows what happened. And even with a federal court subpoena, the file still will not be turned over. And it's important that we have open government and that those files get turned over so that people know what is going on. There is now potentially a contempt of court citation against from federal court against the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation and the deputy governor for not turning over those records. We need to have open government. It's one of the most important ways that we can stop things like Tennessee Waltz from happening. It's one of the most important ways that we can make sure that we hold people's feet to the fire on and make them accountable when they do things that are not right. So open government is absolutely critical, and I appreciate you bringing that question so that we have a chance to talk about the fact that that government should be open not just to the media but to people, and I don't think we should charge them for documents when they make a reasonable request. Right now the government charges people when they make a reasonable request for documents, and I don't think we should be doing that. I think we ought to be open and give them that opportunity.
Okay, LaCheryl, one more question from the audience.
Jean Harrington has a question, and Mr. Bryson, you are first.
Yeah.
Tennessee has the highest food tax in the nation, making it hard for working families to put food on the family table. Do you believe we need to reduce the food tax? If so, how do you propose to reduce the tax while still preserving funding for education and other public programs?
Thank you. Thank you, Gene. I do. Yes, I do. Actually, it's one of the planks in my platform that I believe that when we have excess money coming into this state, we need to reduce the sales tax on food. Here's how we do it. 4 years ago, we had a $1 billion tax increase. Just as Governor Bredesen was coming into office, there was a $1 billion tax increase. All of us saw our sales tax go up, and there was a $1 billion increase. Now, over the last 4 years, we've also seen a lot of money coming into this state. The economy has been good. This last year alone, before we left the legislature, $250 million came in over and above the budget. We went to the administration and asked if we could take a piece of that, $250 million, and put it into a reduction in the sales tax on food. And we were told no, that they would not do that. I believe that the way to begin to take the sales tax off food for the people of Tennessee, because there are working people all over this state that are working hard to make ends meet, living paycheck to paycheck. I believe that the way to do that is when we have an extra coming into the state, we take some of that and we reduce the sales tax on food, and that becomes a recurring savings year in and year out. And we can do that if we have the political will to do that. That is an area where Governor Bredesen and I differ. I believe that we can and we should do that for the people of Tennessee, and Governor Bredesen doesn't believe that we should. So I thank you for the question. I think it's something that we need to be working on. Thank you, Gene.
Governor.
Thank you. I don't think there's anybody in Tennessee who wouldn't love to see the sales tax on food be reduced or be eliminated. What I'm trying to do is to look at all of the needs that we have across our state and make some intelligent judgments about where the monies we have ought to go. You know, Mr. Bryson talked about how easy it was because of that tax increase back in my first couple of years. It didn't seem very easy to me to be cutting 9% across the board and laying people off, and next year having to cut 5% and having to come up with large amounts of money to make the pension system whole in the state. Those were some very tough things. What I'm trying to do now is to say, let's see the money before we spend it. I'd like to run some surpluses, and then we can go back and he and I can agree or disagree on how the money is to be spent. But I think it's vitally important, first of all, to preserve the notion that you're very cautious about putting these long-term expenditures on the table like this reduction until we really see what's happening. Second of all, we still have such needs in education. I want to expand the pre-K program. There are things we need to do to increase graduation rates. We need to be keeping tuition down. One of the things in the colleges, one of the things we spent some of that money that Jim wants to use to reduce the sales tax for. We need to keep in mind that there are a lot of needs in our state, and that these things, they need to be balanced, and we need to keep in mind what really is most needed by the people of our state. I don't think reducing the sales tax on food is the highest priority out there. I think taking care of kids is a high priority. I think getting some health care into the hands of people that don't have it is a higher priority. And that's why I feel the way that I do about this. It'd be a great thing to do. It just is not the time right now. We need to invest in some things for the long-term future of our state.
Another question from the audience, Cheryl.
And that question comes from Justin Pitt, and Mr. Bredesen, you are first.
Many voters are concerned about what the state can do about problems caused by illegal immigration in Tennessee. Mm-hmm. Senator Bryson, you supported state illegal immigration measures in the Senate. Governor Bredesen, you criticized those same measures. What would each of you do to solve this problem in Tennessee?
Yeah. Is that to me first?
Yes.
Yes. Illegal immigration is a problem in our state, which a lot of people feel. I think it is one of those many problems that I've found that the federal government has a huge role in addressing and is totally failing to step up and address that role. What I had hoped to do in the spring, the federal government was moving forward with bills in the Congress. When they failed to produce anything by the end of June, we stepped forward and took some steps. We sent troops down to the border to help seal the border and stop the boat from leaking, first of all. Second of all, we began putting much tougher rules in place for contractors with the state of Tennessee so that they cannot employ illegal alien labor in the process of doing that, a bill which we passed in the spring to make possible. Third of all, we began working, I think much more effectively with local law enforcement agencies so that when you have somebody who's here illegally and has committed a crime, that it's properly handled from that point on. And fourth, we've gone through the various kinds of social service programs we have in our state to make sure that people are not getting services, to protect the taxpayers and make sure that people are not getting services which they're not entitled to. I want to help. I want to put an oar in the water and help solve this problem. I particularly want to take care of people who've committed crimes and make sure that they are properly handled by us and deported. But I think it's vitally important that we not lose sight of the fact that the federal government has got to act in this matter. If we just let them push this, like they do so many other things, down to the state and have our taxpayers paying for things to be done, and make it our responsibility, we are going to have a disaster in this country. We need to do the things we're doing now to help bridge the gap, but we need to keep their feet to the fire to solve this problem.
Senator?
Thank you. It is a federal problem. It's a federal issue that the federal government needs to deal with. But this problem didn't just happen in June. This has been something that's been building for years and years and years, and the state of Tennessee and Governor Bredesen have not done anything about it. And as a matter of fact, Governor Bredesen opposed bills that we passed in the state Senate last year. Last year we passed bills that would have put given the Highway Patrol the training to be able to deal with illegal immigrants when they commit crimes in Tennessee, so that they could work with the federal government to be deported or dealt with. Governor Bredesen opposed that bill. It passed the Senate, but it failed in the House. We had a bill that would have had driver's license testing in English only. Governor Bredesen also opposed that bill, and it died in the House. I have a 10-point plan to deal with illegal immigration. We need to pass those two bills. We also need to eliminate the driver's certificate program. We also need to make sure that employers who knowingly hire illegal immigrants, and we have a way to help employers know when they're hiring them, but when they knowingly and willingly hire them, that they are held accountable. We need to make sure that we have our social services, TennCare, and other government services not available to illegal immigrants, particularly when Tennessee citizens are being kicked off. It's important that we deal with this issue. When I'm governor, I'll sign an executive order, because the governor can do that. I'll sign an executive order when I get into office to give the Tennessee Highway Patrol the authority to get the training from the federal government to be able to work with the federal government to arrest and send back illegal immigrants. We can do that in Tennessee, and we should. It's not just the locals' responsibility. It's not just the feds' responsibility. Every state is now a border state, and it takes good, tough, strong leadership, Senator, to make it happen.
Thank you, Senator. Cheryl, we have a change in our questioning. Is that correct?
That is correct. This next question is for Mr. Bryson only, and it comes from Michelle Haynes.
Mr. Bryson, you've identified yourself as a hunter and fisherman. Would you be accountable to the people of Tennessee, as Governor Bredesen stated, to preserve land for the future of our state and the people of Tennessee with clean air and clean water, or would you support the Bush administration's relaxation of our nation's environmental policies? And in which states do you hold a hunting and fishing license?
Well, let me tell you, I don't currently hold a hunting and fishing license, to answer your question directly. As I was growing up and a young man, I did a lot of hunting and fishing and enjoyed it, and still take my kids fishing on our land, and we enjoy that, and I enjoy taking my kids to do that. I believe that it's important that we have strong environmental standards. It's important that we make sure that our environment is preserved for our kids. Look at the day we had out here today. This was a beautiful day in Tennessee. And I hope that as we go forward, we'll be able to have the environmental regulations to allow our state to develop economically, to allow our state to do what we need to do to create the quality of life for the people of Tennessee. And yet at the same time, it is our job to preserve the environment. You know, I've got 4 kids. One of them's here with me today. I've got 4 kids. We enjoy fishing, and we enjoy doing those things. And I want to make sure that when my kids grow up and they have kids, I want to make sure they have an environment that they can do that in and they can enjoy. And it's important to do that. So we're going to make sure that we have clean air, we have clean water, and we have the kind of environment that will be conducive to hunting and fishing. Everybody knows that I have been a staunch supporter of the Second Amendment and making sure that we have those kinds of rights. And that's why I have the highest rating the NRA will give, an A rating from the NRA, because I believe in supporting that.
This question about open land and clean air, I think.
Okay, I'm sorry, Chris.
Okay. LaCheryl?
This next question is for Mr. Bredesen only, and it comes from Scott Gilmer.
Given recent media reports on TennCare and the new Cover Tennessee program, it seems our state's health care problems have not been solved, and that only the young and healthy will be able to afford coverage under the Cover Tennessee program. Will additional cuts have to be made during the next 4 years? And how will Cover Tennessee help those with cancer, diabetes, and other chronic illnesses that were removed from TennCare?
The actions that were taken with the TennCare program were extraordinarily painful. It was the most difficult problem and the most gut-wrenching problem that I have ever dealt with in my life, in government or in business. But it had to be done. It was so deep in the ditch. It was dragging so much of the state in the ditch along with it. What I'm trying to do now is we're through that. We have done that. I think in the long term, healthcare is always going to be an issue. It grows more rapidly than inflation. That has not gone away. But certainly over the next few years, we have reduced its rate of growth to something that is comfortably within the kind of growth that we're going to get in the budget of the state of Tennessee. And I'm very proud of that, because I think it's the thing that makes so many other things possible. Cover Tennessee is designed to be a program to address the needs of the uninsured, who primarily in our state work for small business, but to address the needs of those uninsured with something which is a basic health insurance program. It is not a comprehensive, it is not TennCare 2 in any way. It's a contained, controllable program that's designed to get people in to see the doctor, let people get in the door of the hospital. There are other mechanisms, including TennCare, through the disability programs, to deal with people with much more fundamental and long-term and chronic kinds of illnesses who qualify for those programs. I think that people are entitled to have these basic health care needs taken care of. TennCare was not a great vehicle for a lot of those people. It was so heavily abused. There were so many people who could afford health insurance in other ways who were on the thing. What we had to do was step back a little bit with that, and we're now out there with Cover Tennessee and Access Tennessee and Cover Kids and some others to try to fill in that gap until the day when the federal government ultimately steps up to what I think are its responsibilities in this area.
Thank you, Governor. Now, the next question was supplied to the League by the Hispanic Voters Group. I will read it verbatim. We'll ask both of you to answer this question, with Senator Bryson, you going first this time. Here's the question for the Hispanic Voters League. During this election cycle, there has been a great deal of talk about illegal immigration. Tennessee has a large population of Hispanic people who are here legally. Many are business owners, citizens, and voters. So much negative language has created backlash against good people who have done nothing wrong. If you are elected, what will you do to stem the hate talk against Hispanic people?
That's a very good question, because I think anybody would say that it's important that what we do is that we just make a clear distinction between legal and illegal. I have friends that are Hispanic, and they have come here legally. And we need to make that clear distinction because we're a nation of immigrants. And we need to remember that. And remember that anyone who comes here legally had worked hard to get here. And they've tried hard, and they've often had to wait and go through a difficult process to get here. So we need to make sure that we hold them up and celebrate that. And one of the things that I will do as governor is I will address the illegal immigration problem firmly and decisively, but we'll also make distinctions, and we will celebrate legal immigration, because legal immigration has made this country strong. And it's important that we go forward to do that. My illegal immigration program will deal with all kinds of issues all across the spectrum, but we'll make sure that this is a state that illegal immigrants avoid. Now, if I can take just a moment, I'd like to go back to another question, if that's okay. A few minutes ago, we talked about economic development, and one of the things that the governor was talking about was investing in infrastructure going forward. And I think that is critically important. And that's why I have been critical of the decision to pull $200 million out of our transportation fund that build our roads and our infrastructure across this state. Because that tends to mortgage our future. Because when we don't have that money in our transportation fund that the good people of Tennessee are paying in gas taxes, then roads don't get finished, transportation projects don't get done, and the people of Tennessee and the businesses in Tennessee aren't allowed to grow across the state the way they should.
Okay, Governor?
I think one of the things that you do is to, as governor, speak about it. And I think many of you have heard me say in a number of different venues how important it is to not let this discussion of illegal immigration become some kind of a general condemnation of legal immigrants of any stripe. And I think some of the things that are talked about and some of the rhetoric that exists in these campaigns skirts awfully close to the edge of that. I think we need to remember when we talk about English language tests and so on, I don't think anybody could get a driver's license who's here illegally. We have people from literally 100 countries around the world who come to this country to legally, and they want to learn English, and we need to make some accommodations to them as we go along. And I think that's one of the ways in which you can address that issue. Holding up the legal immigrants and valuing the contributions not only of Hispanics but of immigrants from all over the world, I think is one of the things that makes this country great, and we need to be careful that we don't slack off on this and all this hysteria that is going on politically about this subject today. I'd like to take 1 minute. Mr. Bryson mentioned this issue of infrastructure, and just say, look, when I faced my first year in office, I didn't know how to close the books of the state that year. We were $500 million in the hole with 4 months left to go. I was busy looking for ways to cut across the board. I asked for shared sacrifice. I went to every department except the Department of Education and the K-12 program, and I said, I want 9%. And that's the way I'm going to balance this budget, and we're going to share it, and we're not going to make choices, and when we can restore those funds, we will. I got that from everybody, including the Department of Transportation and the Road Fund. We have now restored half of that money. I've committed to restore the rest of it in this next year, and frankly, I'm proud of that process, and I think TDOT did a good job of stepping up and being a part of the solution to a very, very difficult problem, and I admire them for it.
Now we come to the closing statements. Senator Bryson, you're first because of the timing of the program. You have 2 minutes and 30 seconds each to talk about anything you want to talk about during your closing statements.
All right, thank you, Chris. First of all, I want to thank the sponsors for doing this, and I want to thank my wife, Carol Bryson, who is here. She's from Greenville, Tennessee, and my daughter, Nadia, is here. Heather Stefik is here with us, and my mother is here. So we've got a family here, and it's good to be here. This has been a good debate. It's been a good time to talk about issues. It's been a time to talk about the differences. I think what we've seen here is a glimpse of two very different futures. There is a clear choice in Tennessee in this election. There's going to be a clear choice for the people. I've been to all 95 counties in this state in the month of August, and everywhere that I have gone, I've had people that have told me, Jim, it's time that we make a change. We can do better in Tennessee. When I'm governor, I'm going to provide the kind of leadership that's going to move this state forward and to provide the kind of future that we can have for my children, for your children. I'm going to work hard to make sure that this is a state that illegal immigrants avoid and legal immigrants seek. I'm going to work hard to make sure that every child graduates from high school. Make sure that no one dies for lack of access to health care. I'm going to work to keep our taxes low. I'm going to work hard to stand tall for Tennessee values and to stand strong against corruption in government, because we need to hold people accountable. I'm excited about the future of Tennessee. I'm excited about where we're going and where we can go with the kind of leadership that will move us forward in education and the kind of leadership that can move us forward in so many different areas. We didn't have a chance to talk about education tonight, but you know, that's one of the most important things that government does. I have a Graduate Tennessee program, and my goal as governor will be to graduate every single student from high school, because that is the beginning of the future, when they graduate with the skills and knowledge that they need to succeed. And I'm as excited about that as anything else that I'll do as governor. We haven't had a chance to talk about many issues tonight, but if you'd like to find out more, you can go to my website. It's just brysonforgovernor.com. I want to ask for your vote, and I'll work hard over the next 24 days to earn that vote. I'm looking forward to working with you over the next 24 days, and I'm looking forward to working with you for you over the next 4 years as governor. Thank you, and may God bless each and every one of you. Good night.
Governor Bredesen, 2.5 minutes.
Thank you. I'd like to begin by also thanking the League for putting this series of 3 debates together. I think it's been a great public service. As I come to the final debate in this campaign, certainly the final debate I'll ever attend running for this office, is to say how much I've enjoyed being governor these last 4 years and what a privilege it has been. This has been a fantastic opportunity for me to repay some of the benefits that Andrea and Ben and I have received in this life, and I thank every person for it. We've been through some tough times together. There's no question about it. I think we've made an awful lot of progress. The budget of the state, which was a disaster, is now together. We're running surpluses. We've got the highest rainy day fund in history. With a lot of difficult decisions and choices, brought TennCare under control. We're beginning to invest heavily in education, in pre-K, in higher education, in programs to increase the graduation rates. What I'm asking you for is a chance to build on this foundation, to take the next 4 years and give me the opportunity to show you what I can do, to get, most of all, to get education out there in front in our state and begin to do the things we really owe the young people of the state. We got to get them ready to be citizens of a very different world in the 21st century, and I want an opportunity to do that. I want to get this Cover Tennessee and these things to work. Health care, it is important. It's just not everything. It is very important. I think we have some innovative ideas that are sustainable, they're forward-looking, they don't have the fraud aspects to them that we had the problems with in TennCare. They're not perfect. I want to roll my sleeves up and make it work and make the decisions and the choices in the months and the years ahead to really make that program become what it can become. I want to work on jobs. I think I've got a knack for it. I think we've had some good successes in that area. And I want to work on land conservation. We had a question about it over here. I would love to leave a legacy of a lot of open land in our state preserved for future generations. I'm here tonight to thank you for the privilege of being governor. I certainly want to ask you for your vote, either in early voting on November 7th. And if I'm fortunate enough and privileged enough to be governor, look forward to working with all of you over the years ahead to make our great state even greater. Thank you very much.
Thank both of you. Let's give them a round of applause.